Hi everybody, and welcome to Teaching Artists Thursdays. I am Mr. Daniel, and today I am going to teach you how to do my absolute favorite thing in the whole world, which is write a short story. All right, I know a lot of people, they have trouble getting started when writing a short story, and that is where I come in. Okay, so one of my absolute favorite things to do is start with a character. And I feel like oftentimes if you can build your character, then a story will come from that. So first we have to talk about a couple of important things on how to build a character, right? So everybody knows what a fact is, right? We learn about what facts are in school. Facts are something that you can prove in court. For example, I am 6 feet tall. You know, that can be proven in court. I've got blue eyes. See them? That can be proved in court. So something that can't necessarily be proved in court is what we call an intuit. And what an intuit is something that you intuit about yourself. It's an intuition, like I'm funny, I'm smart. It's hard to prove in court, right? So if we start with just those things, when we're trying to build a character, then those things that we choose for our character, they can lead toward a story. So today we're gonna do 2 or 3 different stories, and we're always gonna start that way. So for our first story, in fact, our character will be a cat, because Mr. Daniel loves cats. And we'll name our cat Sprinkles. How about that? So now we have a cat, and our cat is named Sprinkles. And another fact about our cat is that our cat can read and write. Then what does our cat think about themselves? Let's say our cat thinks that they're a really good singer. Again, you can't prove that in court. Because I know my mother always told me I could sing, and that's not the truth. Another intuit is that our cat can be ambitious. And what ambitious means is that our cat stops at nothing to get what they want, right? They do whatever they need to get exactly what it is they want. And we can say our cat, another intuit about them is that they're a fast learner. Okay. But now you see we've got all of our facts and our intuits for Sprinkles the cat. All right. And let's see where we go from there. So as you all know, every story has a beginning, a middle, and an end. We have our beginning, which I've labeled number 1. We have our middle, which I labeled number 2. And we have our end, which I labeled number 3. Now down here, you'll see 1.5 and 2.5, but we'll get to that later, okay? Now, you might think that a story needs to start with a beginning, then go to a middle, and then go to an end. But a lot of times, it's easier to just do your end points. So your beginning and your end. So we'll do that for this story, and then we'll mix up the order for our other stories later. So, let's see. For our beginning and our end point of this story, let's say, there once was a cat named blank, right? It could be whatever. We'll say Sprinkles for our story, who wanted nothing more than to be a pop star, because Sprinkles thinks she's a good singer. So we'll say that. That'll be our beginning point, right? Imagine knowing how to use a corkboard. Our end point can be, and so Sprinkles got to record their very own album called Kitty Magic. How about that? and it went number 1. All right? So we'll say that that's our end point of our story. So all we know so far is that there was a cat named Sprinkles who wanted to be a pop star, and eventually, in our story, they got there. They recorded an album and it went number 1. So, if we know that these are what confine our story, then we can start to fill in all the stuff in between. Let's see. A middle point based on our facts and intuits. Let's say if Sprinkles is ambitious, let's say then that Sprinkles met a record producer. All right, let's just say that has to happen, right? To get from point A, or point 1, to point 3, so point 2 needs to be getting Sprinkles the resources to become a pop star. So we'll say Sprinkles met a record producer who was in search for new talent. All right? And there's a story. Now, what we can do to enhance our story is still using our facts and intuits here. We can fill in the spots here in between point 1 and point 2. So what happens between cat named Sprinkles who wants to be a pop star and meeting a record producer? How might Sprinkles have met this record producer? This is then what you would focus on when you're writing your story. So I'll say, Sprinkles, the cat, saw an ad in the newspaper for whatever. In our story, we'll say that it's for a record signing. How's that sound? And we can use our facts and intuits because we know that Sprinkles can read and write. So we know that Sprinkles would be able to read the newspaper and read the ads. So now we know a cat named Sprinkles who wanted nothing more than to be a pop star saw an ad in a newspaper and was able to meet with a record producer who was in search of new talent. So now we need to figure out our 2.5. Has my leg been in the shop the whole time? Our 2.5, which connects the record producer with Sprinkles actually making it big. Now, if we go back to our facts and intuits over here, we see that we intuited that Sprinkles was ambitious and a fast learner. These are things that we can use now in order to finish our story. So we'll say that Sprinkles took many voice lessons, dance classes, and listened to lots of their favorite artists for inspiration. And now we have a complete story. We've got the story of Sprinkles. Sprinkles is a cat who can read and write, a good singer, ambitious, and a fast learner. So in the beginning, there once was a cat named Sprinkles who wanted nothing more than to be a pop star. The cat saw an ad in the newspaper for a record producer, who they then went and met. This record producer was in search of new talent. Sprinkles took many voice lessons, dance classes, and listened to lots of their favorite artists for inspiration. And so Sprinkles got to record their very own album called Kitty Magic, and it went number 1. The end. Or is it? Bum, bum, bum. So now that we've written a story that goes from beginning to end to middle and then fills in all the points, let's try and do one in more beginning, middle, and end, right? We need to start by coming up with more facts and intuits. So for story number 2, let's do something different, and let's say that one of our facts is that our character is an astronaut. How's that sound? And your facts and your intuits can be as like detailed or like non-specific as you want, but I mean, you want them to be something that will lend itself to the story, but sometimes they don't all make it in there. You know, we're just trying to build a character, so let's not think too far ahead. So let's just say this astronaut has brown hair. I'm going to put that down as one of the facts. Will it matter? I don't know. But, and let's say this astronaut also has 2 children. These are all things that can be proved in court. And our intuits about this astronaut. Let's say that we'll just name her Morgan. Morgan the astronaut. Let's say she's a quick thinker. And she's athletic. And she's brave. Okay? So, we've got our facts and our intuits for Morgan the astronaut. Let's see what kind of story we come up with here. Great. So we know we need a beginning. So let's just say that in the beginning, astronaut Morgan landed on a distant planet. Let's crash land it on a distant planet, only to find it inhabited by giant tarantulas. All right, giant tarantulas. That'll be the move. All right. I'm not even afraid of spiders, and that sounds scary, don't you think? All right, so then our middle point. We'll say Morgan managed to get past the giant tarantulas and climb to a high peak. Morgan held up her radio and got a signal. Help! Mayday! That's me being Morgan. How'd I do? Do I get the part? All right, so we've got our middle point. And then we need an end point. So we'll say at the end that, and so the crew found Morgan and they lowered a rope from their ship, pulling her to safety. Great. It's a fine story, but it could be better, right? So far what we have is we have an astronaut, Morgan, crash landed on a distant planet only to find it inhabited by giant tarantulas. Morgan managed to get past the giant tarantulas and climb to a high peak. Morgan held up her radio and got a signal. Help! Mayday! Well, I guess if she had a radio, she'd be, help! Mayday! Mayday! All right, and then the crew found her, lowered a rope, and pulled her to safety aboard the ship. It's fine, it's a good story, but we can add more. We want to know, don't you want to know? I want to know. Morgan needed to get to a high peak, and we know that she was able to get up there. She was able to climb up there because she's athletic, right? And she was able to get past the giant tarantulas because she's brave, right? But why did she go up there? Why did she have to go up to the high peak? So that's what we need to write and figure out, right? So we'll say she tried to radio another ship for help, but she couldn't get a signal, and that's why she needed to get higher up. So now we know that after she crash landed on this planet inhabited by giant tarantulas, she tried to call for help right away, but she wasn't able to get a signal. So she was probably like, oh, goodness gracious, I'm going to have to go past these tarantulas, climb all the way up here to the top of this peak so I can get a signal on my radio and call for help. Otherwise, I'm going to become tarantula food, and nobody wants that. So that's what happened. So now, what happens between her calling for help and then showing up? I want to know. Don't you want to know? Well, it hasn't been written yet, so we need to write it. She gets up there and she calls, help, mayday. We're on the way. 10 minutes. 10 minutes? That's what they said. I didn't make it up. I did make it up. All right, so 10 minutes. She has 10 minutes to kill. But the tarantulas heard this and they started coming towards Morgan. Scary. So Morgan started throwing rocks at the tarantulas, and she did that for a whole 10 minutes, and that held them off. That works, right? If I saw a tarantula, I'd probably throw a rock at it too. What other sorts of things can we throw at tarantulas? Feel free to leave that answer in the comments. So, things we know about Morgan. She's an astronaut, she has brown hair, she has 2 children. See how brown hair and 2 children didn't really come into our story this time, but if you wanted to be more detailed when you were writing your story, you could say that she was really desperate to get off this planet because she wanted to get home to her kids. Right? Alright, so then our intuit. She's a quick thinker. This she proved many times in our story. She's athletic and she's brave. Alright, so in the beginning, astronaut Morgan crash-landed on a distant planet only to find it inhabited by giant tarantulas. She tried to radio another ship for help, but couldn't get a signal. She needed to get higher up. Morgan managed to get past the giant tarantulas and climbed to a high peak. She held up her radio and got a signal. Help! Mayday! We're on the way. 10 minutes. But the giant tarantulas heard this and started towards Morgan. So she started throwing rocks. Or whatever else you want her to throw, right? That's what that is. This held off the tarantulas. And so the crew found Morgan and lowered a rope, pulling her to safety aboard the ship. The end. Or is it? Bum, 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 bum. Thank you so much for joining me for this Teaching Artist Thursday. I'm really excited. I hope that this made a lot of sense to you all. And I actually want to invite you to start writing your own stories. I'm going to post a picture of this board, how it is blank right now, so you have a template. But I would love it if you all wanted to put in the comments of this video stories that you came up with at home. Start with your facts and intuits, and then write the story in whatever order works the best for you. Thank you all, everybody. I'm Mr. Daniel from Drama Learning Center, and we will see you next Thursday for another Teaching Artist Thursday.